Welcome to the How We Feel podcast. Today we're chatting with somebody who's been shaping the modern touring and rock landscape from behind the curtain. Zachary Yoshioka is the founder of Powerline Management, a strategist and operator who's helped build and scale tours and brands for some of the biggest names in rock and beyond. He's one of the rare people who understands both the arts and infrastructure, logistics and fan experience that keep acts on the road and thriving. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this, man. We really appreciate your time.
No, absolutely. And I mean, just kicking us off, we like to usually start jumping in right away of like, where did you get started, in music and kind of in your early days? Was it something that was like through your family, your parents helped inspire? What was like your starting point that made you get inspired to be, in music?
Super random stories. So when I was in the early 2000s, I was a filmmaker in college, and I was like putting my independent films in the dollar theater because this was before YouTube and social media.
That's cool.
So in the early 2000s, I was basically running around with my friends making these independent films. We were basically TikTok before TikTok.
That's
and we
sick.
were premiering them at the Dollar Theater in Tempe, called Tempe Cinemas out here in Tempe, Arizona. And a bunch of bands started asking me locally if I would shoot their music videos for them. So I would shoot their music videos. I would put them before the movie premieres. And eventually I started shooting live videos with the audio from the albums for like bands that were signed. And, in college, I shot everyone from like multi-camera from like 3 Days Grace to like Story of the Year and just a lot of bands, Yellow Card, The Format, a lot of stuff from like the early 2000s era. And the day before I graduated college, this guy Kevin Zinger calls me. He's actually the manager of Sublime now, but he calls me and he's like, "Hey man, I need a Cottonmouth Kings DVD. The band just broke off of Capitol Records and we're doing this like 4-month ABCD market tour. And can we fly you out to tour and can you make us a DVD?" And I was like, I'm 22 years old. I'm about to graduate from ASU. And he bought me a plane ticket and he gave me $10,000 and he gave me $5,000 of SRH clothing because that was like their brand.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
I left in May and I came back in September and, it was a really interesting experience because the Cottonmouth Kings were very DIY and they had just broken off a Capitol and they were all about like, doing it on their own and not being part of like the system anymore.
Yeah.
And I felt like that, picking their brain on that and then filming a documentary for them called 10 Years Deep was really what kind of like shaped and formed my early understanding of the music business.
That's
and then,
cool.
After that, I did one more Cottonmouth Kings DVD called, it was like a live DVD, multi-camera, and it was like almost an hour and a half long. And bands from Arizona started like approach me to manage them. And I had this band, Morning Maxwell, and I managed them, and we did the band's Warped Tour in 2005. And this is like when Mike Hem and Fall Out Boy were all exploding.
Damn.
And emo was like kind of replacing pop punk at the time. And long story short, Morning Maxwell broke up, but I was like, I think I can do this.
Sure.
So I found this band. My roommate was dating this girl, Alexia, and she was in a band called I Set to Kill that was exploding on MySpace.
Yeah.
So I do this meeting where I'm 24 years old at the time, and I sit down with this 17-year-old Alexia Rodriguez. Her sister Anissa was 16, and Alex Torres, who went on to be an Alessana, et cetera, was in the band at the time. And I sit down with these 3 kids, and I'm like, "Hey, I want to be your manager." And I obviously, Morning Maxwell, I got him on the Warped Tour. What do you think? And these kids were looking at each other like, "Well, Zach's 25. He can rent a van." Yes,
He knows. Yeah. This is cool. Okay.
So I picked up I Said to Kill, and 6 months later we were touring with Papa Roach, and then we were on the Warped Tour, and fast forward X amount of years, I'm 45 in July now, and I'm still doing it. So completely random how I fell into all of it. So
it is crazy how fast time flies too when you kind of get in the mix of things and just start having fun with it and going along the way. Another part I remember too is touching base where you did a lot of booking stuff and kind of tapped into the booking market. I guess Catch Me Up or Us Up on. Did you actually own the venue in Arizona, or did you run a venue for a while, or did I mix that up somewhere, or what was that story?
So in the early years of Powerline, this is like 2007 to 2008 ish. Our roster was I Set to Kill, the Somerset Karate High School, and a band called Peach Cake that was on Sideshow Records. And we kept, these bands would play for promoters and we just kept getting like ripped off in our hometown. So my whole thing was like, well, I'll do the show for them and we'll give all the money to the band. And then, obviously all these bands had agents. So I started to get into the agency system and I started to ask, other agents started asking me for holds on these shows and offers on these shows, et cetera, et cetera. So it started as a way to help our management clients not basically get paid fairly, especially in our hometown where their biggest draw is. And from there, it led into our concert company before COVID did shows for everyone from 21 Pilots to Travis Scott to John Bellion, all the Warped Tour bands. One year we booked 50 out of all the Warped Tour bands that were on the lineup. And it was just a weird, it was a weird time because we were on the cusp of like a scene that was growing and we were the kind of the experts in booking all that. Right. But then as that genre started to die down, before COVID, I don't know if you guys realize, but rock was not very popular before COVID. We started booking shows for everything from like Suicide Boys to Lil Peep to, Puya, Fat Nick. We were very, very close to all the SoundCloud rappers too. So we kind of just like did whatever we could to keep the concert company alive. And my attitude was, we were a third party promoter. We didn't own a venue. So my attitude was, put as many ticket links up as possible. And as long as ticket links are up, gross revenue's coming through and I could always pay the bands. And in 14 years, we only did two reductions, which were both agency initiated because they knew they were going to tank our company.
No, that's exciting.
But it was a wild ride. And then after COVID, I was like, I'm not dealing with all the vaccine stuff. And the concert insurance at that point went through the roof after the pandemic. And so we just decided to focus on management 2021 and onwards. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense then. But no, it's really cool. And that's where it kind of reminds me of our story too, is where we came up as happenstance of kind of needing to do things like, okay, we fell into this and whatever. And it was a similar thing here out in Kent, Ohio, our college, Kent State University and stuff was like some venues, but we had just friends bands that would come through or tours would fall into his lap or, come our way or whatever. And before we knew it, like he's booking Whitechapel or 21 Pilots came through or MGK or, just tons of crazy bands over the years that, we got to work with and see and experience. And I think that's a great learning experience too, kind of wearing that multi-hat thing to where we understand, and can relate to artists on so many different sides of things. Like you mentioned, from a video side perspective, even to the show side, touring side, logistics, what it kind of takes. And I think that's a unique thing that's, I won't say lost because I don't know, I'm sure it's still out in the business, but that's like a rare thing I find connecting with people that like we've done those things and like understand it. Yeah. So that's really cool.
I think if you've been a promoter, especially for over a long period of time, like 14 years, you can see a band rise and fall. And when you see a band rise and fall on the ground in the hard ticket club situation, you start paying attention to the marketing, you start paying attention to timing and what's happening in culture at that time. And I think there's a lot of that you could apply to the management side as well, because you're in the trenches seeing what's happening with everything that's new, everything that's old, what's having resurgence, what's dying out, what's popping off, what's flavor of the moment. It was crazy, like being a promoter. I miss that aspect sometimes because I felt like I was always on the cusp of what was popular and what was going to explode. But at the same time, I don't miss having hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line all the time.
The stressful, the fun and stress.
Very, very stressful. But my attitude again was keep the ticket revenue coming in. I would go to LA. I'd meet with agents constantly. And I was always trying to put up a new ticket link all the time. So we never had an issue with paying anyone because the money was constantly flowing as long as we had ticket links up. But it's because at 1 year, I think it was 2014, we had grossed almost $4 million in ticket revenue. Our profit margin was just barely six figures. It was terrible. I was just like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, that's hard to deal with.
That's crazy.
So when you started Powerline, what was the vision you had then versus what it's become now?
Sure. I mean, it was one of those things where I wanted to be a filmmaker, but there was something in me that I don't know. I just always had a heart for musicians. I'm honestly not even that massive a fan of music. Like I like music, but I'm way more into like movies and stuff like that.
Oh,
so
really?
I think having a non-biased opinion of commercialism. Someone once gave me the quote, the manager is the liaison between art and commerce. And I think when you're not a huge music fan to begin with, it kind of gives you a perspective that it could be interpreted as cold, but also gives you a very realistic, honest interpretation of how to grow a business without getting caught up in the bias, et cetera, or getting caught up in being a fan, you know? So
that's interesting.
That is, I like
that. I mean, it's a weird thing because when you really look at it from that perspective, I think it's easier to scale a business. But I also think that managers that were musicians and are fans also have an advantage too, because they understand things more culturally. So I don't really know how to answer that question because I think I'm kind of an oddity. I just fell into it all because I cared about people, and I've just kind of always had a heart because the music business, at least in the early 2000s, was it was kind of like designed with gatekeepers in the sense of like, if you couldn't get on the label or their MTV or the radio or these tours, you weren't able to break. And now everything's bass backwards. We live on the device. You build a following on the device first, and then you go on tour to connect with people from the device.
Of course.
And the question is can the people who are getting the dopamine hit from the device be a loyal fan that will be with you for a long time? That's the code we're all kind of trying to crack right now.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's so true. I like that a lot. That's really nice.
What's something that you think artists and fans completely misunderstand about what a manager does for a band?
Oh man, I get asked this all the time, especially like family members and new people that I meet. They're like, "What do you mean you manage bands?" I'm like, "Well,
what do you do?"
I think Randy, the manager of Under Oath, when he exited Under Oath, he made the best quote. He said, the artist is the shareholder, the band. So you got X amount of members of a band and they're the shareholders, and they hire a CEO to run their company the same way Apple Computer hired, X amount of CEOs to run theirs, including their original founder, Steve Jobs. So we act as the CEO for all these artist companies. And I've always used the mentality of we work for them, even though we are leading. We, at the end of the day, we do work for them because we're trying to put them in the spotlight. And another great analogy is like, I tell a lot of bands, I'm the head coach, you're the star quarterback, and I'm trying to position the team to kick the field goal in or run the touchdown in, So
a good way to look
that's
at it.
The closest way I can illustrate it, but that's usually what I tell people when they ask.
That's such a good way to explain it too for the average person or people to understand and absorb that. That's really good.
It's no different than a manager at like Walmart. You got all these departments at the Walmart. You got this produce department, you got the camping department, you got the electronics, and the manager / CEO is running that thing to make sure that they stay in the black. And that's what we do. I mean, obviously the band has the record label, the booking agent, the publicist, the business manager, the lawyer. Yeah. Someone's got to lead the team and have vision for it. And that's what we try to do over here. So
that makes total sense. Is a great way to put it. Mm-hmm. So when you meet a new band, what's 3 things that you look for before you decide whether or not you want to work with them?
It could be a variety of different reasons. I mean, there's always what you call the it factor, where, does the band have the image? Do they have the star power? Do they have the right songs? Do they have the work ethic? I think it starts with that, Mm-hmm. Also, are they writing songs that, give people goosebumps and the hair on their arms stand up? Like that's a huge component in it. I will say A&R on all levels of the music business operate now more. They listen with their eyes, not their ears. They're looking at monthly listeners, numbers, and social media statistics, et cetera, because we're just in an age right now where you can tell if consumerism is there or not. Like, you can kind of tell by looking at Shopify numbers and looking at streaming, is there a demand for this or not? And does this artists need infrastructure or a manager to manage the band properly, or the client properly, I guess I should put it. So there's a lot of that. I mean, I miss the days of, I think there was a benefit to the gatekeeper days when MTV, the radio, and signing to a major was the only way to really break. But commercialism in music, I think, are very, very separated now. Getting on Jimmy Kimmel isn't going to break a band.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to do it's not going to have the same level of impact as it did 20 years ago, So what I like about things like TikTok and Instagram Reels is you can go viral without any followers,
Very true.
If you ride that algorithm wave right, and you can understand, how to make things visual, then you have an advantage over everyone that doesn't. But I do miss the days of like you said, what do you look for? I do miss the days of man, Mariah Carey's really talented. She can sing better than anyone. If I put her on the platform, she's going to be a star. Yeah. I wish it was pure like that again, but unfortunately that's just not the world we live in. So.
No, that's very true with that.
It always seems like Spotify numbers, number one. What do you got on Spotify?
Right. No, it seems like that's kind of a lost thing. Like, I mean, depending on the people, everybody has different preferences of it, but I always say that's something I still look for is does it wow me first when I see it, and then I'll kind of check numbers, analytics, data, and stuff like that. Obviously, it still has to make sense, but I'm like, I like that excitement of finding stuff, even if it's early on, and figuring out how you can try to, and that's the hard part of, our job as managers too, is knocking on the doors then and taking those things proven or give me some belief in it too. Here's why, and kind of telling the stories and things like that is exciting along the way.
For sure.
Yeah. It's very difficult because, I think a lot of numbers are casual listeners or casual followers. That doesn't necessarily they're going to be a fan. Like Einstein Kills isn't massive on streaming by any means, but they have a very, very dedicated cult-like following that that is extremely, extremely competitive, almost at the arena level. So it's not everything, but it's a big component in it, unfortunately. So
yeah.
Excuse me. What do you think the biggest mistake you see bands make when they're starting to gain traction? What's one mistake
I think a lot of bands go out and tour way too early, or they want to play live way too early. It's harsh because I think a lot of bands want to be a band and play shows, and this part of the art of it is playing live. But the reality is if you want to build something up, it's all about the device. You need to be putting out short form and telling some sort of compelling story, along with writing great songs and releasing them. And that's where it starts. And then when you have enough of a following online on the device, from there, you go out there and you play to see, okay, is this just a bunch of white noise, or do people actually care? Because the amount of consumption and just the amount we just binge on data is crazy. I don't know if human beings are supposed to be like sometimes I sit on TikTok or Instagram Reels and I start scrolling and I'm like, I don't remember what I looked like after that. What I looked at. I mean, I just looked at this amazing burrito, and I looked at this new band, and I looked at
so many things,
this mukbang, and I looked at these pills I need to take. Otherwise, I'm going to be constipated. It's just I don't know if we're supposed to be consuming like that. The only way to get ahead in music is you've got to have something compelling enough where someone is scrolling and then they stop and they're like, wow, I feel like I just discovered this,
Right. It's tough in such a flooded market, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, that's great advice, though, and a great way to look at it from a different standpoint. I think you're right. A lot of bands just want to go out, play a show, but there's 6 people there or something. You know what I mean? It's work on the other end first. You're right, because everyone is just on the device constantly. So
another part of that,
lack of vision and goal too. A lot of bands, I'm like, what's your goal? They're like, I want to tour. I'm like, that's not a goal. What's your mission statement? What are your songs about? Well, I don't know. Universal pits. I want the biggest pit possible. I'm like, okay. The era I came from, people started a band because they had something to say. And then music was the only way to communicate that in an emotional way. So I just, I think there's a lack of vision in young artists. And I do think that I do think that there's more influencers that are trying to make music versus artists that that have to become influencers. It's bizarre. I saw the Manager's Playbook podcast recently. Nick D said that a lot of times he'll come up with a content idea and then he'll write a song around that. And I was like, that's really interesting. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm 45 in July. I don't understand the idea of like, I would write a song around a piece of content. I understand writing a soundtrack to a movie, but maybe it's the same thing. What do I know?
No, things are changed. That's what it used to be. I guess it still is too. I was going to say Spotify playlists, you know, some artists believe like that's the end all. If you make it on that, you're going to be big, or like it changes everything or something. And it's not hating on that. Obviously it's still an important piece of the puzzle somewhere. I guess it falls in there, but that's one thing too, that I always hate to be like the negative one to tell the artist, but I'm like, listen, that's not changing your career trajectory, you know, or anything like that. You know, I mean, it'll help with some discovery ideally and things like that, but kind of get it out of your mind that like, oh, we're on a playlist now. This means big, you know, big or something like that, and use it as a part of the tool, I guess, instead of being like, we need that. It's the only thing that can make us type of a thing, you know?
I think there's a lot of things that opportunity wise too, that are great flexes, but it really comes down to like, is there conversion or not? I've had a lot of clients tour arena tours with big bands, et cetera. And then we go on headline and it doesn't seem like the people from that arena tour have showed up at the headline show. Sure. And don't get me wrong, you know, my bands, it's good to do those big Live Nation arena tours, et cetera, but there needs to be conversion in it. You know, back in the day, like Fall Out Boy would take out Gym Class Heroes, they would get big. Gym Class Heroes would take out Academy Is, they'd get big. Academy Is would take out Panic at the Disco, they would get big. But it just doesn't feel like it's that way anymore. It feels like it's the device, and then are the people from the device in the audience or not? I mean, I could be wrong, but again, conversion is everything. If we go out and do a big tour, what is it going to look like when I go back to those markets as a headliner? Are those people from that big tour going to show up or not? Are they buying merch or not? Are they? Is it causing more streams? I don't know. And those are the things that we look at as a management company to make sure our artists are always growing and creating conversion. So
that's great. That's really smart.
Yeah, all really good advice. What's one thing working with bands like Escape the Fate? What has that taught you about longevity in the scene when it's changing so fast?
Sure. You know, I met with a guy named Dave Strunk at UTA. It was called the Agency Group still before COVID. And he gave me some of the best wisdom ever. I sat down with Dave and I was like, Dave, you've been at the Agency Group / UTA since it opened. How did you keep a desk this long? And he goes, Zach, I only work with bands with cult-like followings. He's like, a lot of them never get bigger. A lot of them never get smaller, but they have these loyal, dedicated followers that will be with them, buying tickets, buying merch to the end. So he's like, you don't want to get with like some viral moment band because it's a means to an end. You want to find legacy acts that can go the distance. And if you look at our roster, you know, a lot of our roster are still full-time pro athlete type bands. Like Escape the Fate plays about 200 shows a year. Butcher Babies plays 200 shows a year. Dead, The Haunt, Convictions, they're all just touring relentlessly. But it's one of those things where I'm always trying to instill in these artists, we need a cult-like following and a loyal fan base, because if we don't, you are one doom scroll or one click or one swipe away from someone else's next favorite band. My biggest issue with Spotify is if you scroll down on any band's page, it says artists that you might also like. So it just kills the loyalty and fan base. So back to what Dave Strunk says, I like finding artists that I can build a cult-like following with that can be generational. And if you look at Linkin Park, if you look at ICP, if you look at Nine Inch Nails, they have created cult-like followings, even if they don't have relevant hits today. I think another great example is, you know, there's Sublime. There's just so many of these big bands. Tech Nine's a great example. That The Maine, another great example where they might not be the biggest band out there, but they've got people that are going to be loyal and with them all the way to the end. So
that's really great.
Is that something you can manufacture? Or does this have to organically happen? How do you create that cult-like following?
I think what it really comes down to, I sat in a Butcher Babies meet and greet on their bus on this last Jairus Johnson tour. And I think it really comes down to making an interpersonal relationship with fans. Yeah. Heidi and Henry, they've been at it for 15 years, and I watched them genuinely, truly care about their fans. It wasn't just like, all right, we got to do this meet and greet, let's get it over with. It was a genuine, wow, this person took time out of their weekday to come see us and pay to hang out with us. I'm going to give them the most genuine experience possible, and I'm going to care about their life. I watched this podcast recently with Oz Perlman, and he's that mentalist, and he did a birthday party for Steven Spielberg, and he said after he finished the mentalist show, he goes up to Steven Spielberg and he had a million questions to ask him, but what he found was Steven Spielberg was more interested in him and everyone else at the party than projecting the attention on himself. And that's how I think you build a cult-like following. You make people feel genuinely that you care about them. Yeah. And when you do that, whether it be through Discord, like we're on right now, or whether you're doing it through social media, or whether you're doing it in person, or whether you're going to the merch table after, that connection really means a lot to people. So I think that's a huge component. And there's a million other things I could ramble about in building that, but the cult-like following is the only way, I think, to survive in music now, because everything is here today, gone today. We drop a song and 2 weeks later it's old.
Yeah, so that's very true.
It's such a quick industry these days.
Have you ever had to help a band completely reinvent themselves to stay relevant, or not so much?
On the behind the scenes infrastructure wise, yes. I've kind of been the guy to come in and turn a lot of broken projects around. I won't work on anything that I want to play dress up with or tell them how to write their songs, or, I definitely think I can be strict on like timelines and consistency and social media and posting and stuff. But if I don't like a band's image and I don't identify with a band's message or what they're doing, there's no point in me being the CEO of their company. So a lot of times it's more behind the scenes stuff. I always call it lanes in the freeway. What does your sound exchange look like? What does your publishing look like? What does your Shopify look like? What does your tour income look like? What does your sponsorship streamline look like? Like, what do all the lanes in the freeway that bring gross in look like? And are the lanes in those freeways congested, or are they free flowing? And how are we building and amplifying the ones that are free flowing? So I've restructured things like that and cleaned house on a lot of things in that sense. But as far as what a band is doing on the artistic side, I try to stay out of that. And I'll always tell an artist what I think personally, but at the end of the day, it's their journey and I'm just here to facilitate it. That's the attitude I've always taken. So
yeah, that's a great attitude to have. Great way to look at it.
Great way to put it.
What's the biggest risk that you've ever had to take to an artist that paid off?
I mean, they're all risks. They can eat up a lot of time. And even if your commissions are on the budget sheet, that doesn't mean the band can't or bus won't break down and then the tour's canceled and everyone's screwed. I mean, it's like any business, you're taking a calculated risk no matter what. But, I found that like if you have enough projects, much like shows, concerts, if I was always putting up ticket links, we were always okay. Right. If I've always got clients working, the years that some clients are writing and recording and not as active on the gross potential side, the ones that are making up for that and keeping the company afloat, et cetera, so you got to look at it like balance. But in terms of risk, I mean, they're all a risk. They could kill a lot of your time, but you got to see even with a risk that fails, that time could open the door to number two. And it's also a knowledge thing. What did you learn from working on that failed, and we've definitely had more failures than wins, but it's one of those things I saw in the manager's playbook. This manager was talking, he was like, you got to kind of be slightly delusional to work in music. And you got to be kind of slightly delusional to work as an entrepreneur in general, because, the odds are stacked against you. But if you meet people at the top CEO and entrepreneur positions out there, a lot of them are still very, very delusional because again, if you can, it's high risk, high reward. So.
Yeah, very true.
Very true. How did you find for yourself over the years of doing this? Obviously, it takes a lot of trial and error, but an X amount of clients that you can take on to handle at any given time. How did you kind of find your limit or your number for yourself that seems to work?
That's a good question. So late 2024, I had 10 clients, and my wife, before our son was born, we were just doing everything. She was like tour director, and I was talking to all the bands, and we would do the finance and budgeting and all that stuff together. And it was a great thing, but it was one of those things where I didn't have any young bands on the roster, and I wanted an ecosystem. So, I flirted with some of the larger management companies about possibly taking a salary and bringing my roster to them. And I met with a business advisor, and the business advisor said, look, Zach, if you don't want to move and you want to be your own boss, he was like, don't manage more bands, manage more people. He's like, train and mentor guys to do what you can do. So in late 2024, we started scaling the company, bringing in, at the time I was turning down like 2-3 bands, like legit bands a week that ended up doing things. And, because of bandwidth reasons. So now our company has 7 managers and 2 employees, but what I've found is delegation with people's strengths and weaknesses is key. And we work in teams over here. So most of our clients have a person doing, they're creating the timeline, they're leading the project, they're talking to the band all day. One person's doing the logistics, the finance, the, all that analysis, et cetera, et cetera. And then we got another person, which is usually me, looking for opportunity, making sure it keeps moving all the time. Are we getting this festival? Are we getting this tour?
Yeah.
You got to have someone that's just in the game hustling at all time. But if you neglect the logistics and neglect the timeline and release, and et cetera, this part can suffer or that part can suffer. Right. So you've got to work a team. So we're in a place now where like most of our clients have anywhere from 2 to 3 people working on them simultaneously, which is also another task for me because, there's a lot of personalities and there's a lot of like picking up on things and you don't want to be a micromanager. So I've learned, and I'm still learning, to be a better leader than I am manager. So, and sometimes there's days where I'm like any entrepreneur, I'm just like, dude, I'm a way better manager than I am company owner, but things continue to grow and things are always getting better. And we're always learning on the journey. So, it's been one of those things that's been very rewarding because I have certain hands-on fundamentals that I insist on. Yeah. But again, everyone has their own styles and their own communication abilities. And I have a handful of managers that are just very gifted in things that I'm not, and being able to recognize those things is a key part of leadership. So
that is, I guess, touching on that point too of first being able to know when you want to take that next step and start bringing those people in. And then comes the part too of, I guess teaching them or working with them or seeing their experiences and things like that. And, and then letting go of the reins, so to speak, a little bit too, to let them kind of doing their thing is a whole other thing too, to like have to learn, figure out, get comfortable with. And it's not usually like an ego thing either, right? Of like, I have to do this, I have to do this, but it's just a thing like, this is what we know, or this is what I know. So that's neat that you're able to figure that out, get the routine going and kind of continue growing and, thriving with the other people, teaching them, but also kind of letting go, so to speak, of those other things too, to allow the company as a whole to grow. And that's something that myself personally have hit walls with things like that and, try to figure out and things like that along the way. Again, it's like, not like I have to do everything, but it's like, it's just how it is. I don't, so figuring that out, that's neat to hear from yourself about that.
Yeah, it's a learning curve, man. The attitude I have is, I'm 45 in July. I'm going to be 50 in 5 years. I'll only be 22 in Asian years, but I am going to be 50. So what I've found is this is a young man's game. And I don't know if bands in their 20s are going to listen to a 50-year-old when I'm 50. I don't know. So I want as many young, talented, driven men, women with our company that can further things. And my goal is to eventually just lead people and train people as the CEO, just like I am the CEO of these bands, versus managing a roster of 10. Sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of clients on our roster that I'll basically always manage because I'm just very passionate about them and I love them to death. Yeah. But if I'm going to be in the game 5 years from now, I'm going to have an ecosystem, and I need younger guys and women to be building up the future of rock tomorrow. So
very smart. Well said again on all of that stuff. That's really good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Any advice that you would give younger bands just starting out, steps to take? I know you mentioned build the following on the phone, build the see if you could retain the people there first. But what else would you tell a band just getting started?
I get asked this question a lot by young musicians, and I'm like, be a rapper or a DJ.
I thought you were joking and be like, don't do it. No.
You'll get paid when a band gets paid, and it's just you.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing more and more bands present themselves as band, but operate as pop star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's so funny.
I just think, it's interesting. I think 80% of my bandwidth is beat up delegating 4 or 5 people. It's hard enough keeping a marriage together. Imagine 4 or 5 people. You look at Blink-182, 3 guys. At some point there's going to be friction. Yeah. And I always tell people I can do the business stuff with my eyes closed, but the delegation of getting people on the same page is hard. I was, sometimes I talk to clients and I'm like, someone will say something. I'm like, what did they just say? And these other guys heard this. And they're like, no, that's not what I said. And then I'll talk to these guys and be like, well, what do you think they said? And it's just like different languages that, I don't know if either of you guys are married, but I'm always trying to I say something, it could be interpreted in a way that is not the intention, So it's one of those things you got to be very careful with bands in any relationship in order to keep them moving. So I think communication's so key with that. So to save a lot of heartache down the road, be a rapper or a DJ or a solo artist.
Right. Yeah, it's so
That's
true.
my advice. Start there,
yeah.
And then figure everything else will be a lot less painful.
Yeah, it's so true. We've definitely found over the years with different bands, that's by far the hardest part about a band is getting the 5 dudes on the same page.
Oh, so hard.
I think that's why you see so much in today's market of a band just being a sole owner, 2 guys that own the band and have a bunch of hired-ons, because it's the only way to make it work, it seems like.
Yeah. For sure.
What I really enjoy, I have a client, Sammy Adams, on our roster, and it's just such a pleasure because it's just me and him making all the decisions. And he's got a lawyer, a business manager, a booking agent, and a full team. But I can get him on the phone, we can agree on something, and it's go.
Right.
And
it just works.
It's just so it's interesting because our roster is mainly rock and metal and emo. And I did a lot of shows for Sammy Adams and T-Mills and Mod Sun and Black Bear and Huey Mack and, the whole Jake Miller, the whole college stuff about 10 years ago. And so when I was approached with Sammy Adams, I was just so ecstatic because he has that hit All Night Longer. And dude, the amount of traction that All Night Longer still gets is just uncanny. It's one of those gifts that just keeps giving, and John Feldman signed him to his label and we got new music out and we're playing the Warped Tour and but you can also get these huge I guess you can call them frat rap shows. He's doing Daytona, this big beach thing in May. And he does a lot of college gigs still. And occasionally we'll get these crazy wedding offers where he'll get paid a bunch of money to go do one song. And it's just been such a pleasure with him because it's a different world than I'm used to. But at the same time, it's just me and him. Yeah. And I love when ideas are flowing and I don't have to debate the idea with someone else. He has an idea, I have an idea, and we just go, So it's, great. I think the more of that I could have in my life, the better. But there is also nothing better than bringing restoration to Flyleaf and Lacey Sturm or a band that is about to break up but can't see the potential of being bigger as a unit than as an individual. So, there's a lot of sides to it. But our company's main mission statement, in my opinion, is restoration. We're always trying to fix a broken car or keep things in a way where everyone can win and it can be mutually beneficial versus me, myself, and I, me, myself, and I, me, myself, and I.
Yeah. Anything else from you wanted to add in?
Trying to think if there's any good questions that could help some artists out. Some last minute things. I think we touched on almost everything. I guess, will we see you out in Ohio this year? Obviously, I'm sure you have some acts playing either the Sonic Temple and or Incarceration. Ohio rocks and has two of those great festivals. We actually talked recently with Zach from Danny Wimmer Presents, if you know him or cross paths with him ever. But yeah, so it was great to do that. But hopefully you'll get to make your way out to Ohio and we'll get to hang out, sometime this summer or a couple times this summer.
Yeah, I've already got my flights for Sonic, and Incarceration is my birthday weekend. I really want to see Limp Bizkit, and I have Escape the Fate and Dead on that. So I'm going to try to make it to that one as well. Nice. But if I don't make it to that one, I will for sure be at Sonic. We should hang.
Oh yeah. Let's definitely link up. We're going to come down. We were just talking to come down to Sonic, and obviously we'll be at Inc. But yeah, I look forward to
so
meeting
close
you
to
in
each
person.
other. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, for sure it is. And we'll have to make our way out that way as well sometime and get to check out your neck of the woods. But no, we really appreciate you coming on and taking the time to just chat with us here. We're trying to do something a little different with kind of our band and project too, is talk with friends in the industry, give some advice along the way too, and kind of get people to know more about us in depth and things like that too, besides just like a band only, music only thing, since we each have interesting stories and stuff as well. So appreciate you coming on and hanging with us here.
Means a lot. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. And much luck to you and everything you're doing, Chris. I've always been an admirer of everything that you've been doing as a manager, label, promoter, and stage at Inc. So
yeah, man.
Let me know how we can ever support you,
No, that means the world, of course, and definitely look up to all your work too. So we'll get in touch some more and hopefully see you here in a couple short months or a few short weeks actually even. So
awesome, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, dude.
See you.
See ya.
Thank you.